tens of thousands of people navigate the grounds of a 2026 music festival without ever reaching for a physical wallet. They buy drinks, enter the IP areas, and scan into brand activations using nothing but a quick tap of their wrist. But that piece of fabric and plastic contains no battery. It is a passive device designed to remain dormant until it comes into contact with specific hardware. Inside each band is a chip built for RFID and NFC, radio frequency identification, and near-field communication. These technologies operate at exactly 13.56 MHz. They draw their electrical power entirely from the invisible radio waves emitted by portals hidden throughout the festival grounds, waking up the chip just long enough to transmit a unique identifier. Every physical tap, every entry into a new zone, and every drink purchase generates a time-stamped location ping. Organizers aggregate these pings to compile real-time behavioral profiles, logging exactly how many minutes you dwell in a specific tent and mapping your precise movement patterns across the venue. The festival's frictionless aesthetic masks an industrial-scale physical data harvesting operation. Regulators are now heavily scrutinizing how this exact type of granular behavioral data is deployed. Their primary target is surveillance pricing, the practice of using a consumer's location, demographics, and physical behavioral profile to generate individualized, dynamically fluctuating prices. On January 27, 2026, California Attorney General Rob Bonta launched an aggressive investigative sweep. His office began sending inquiry letters directly to businesses, demanding to know exactly how they use consumer personal data to set these individualized prices. Simultaneously, the Federal Trade Commission is running a parallel federal probe. The FTC is specifically examining AI-driven algorithmic pricing tools to determine if extracting sensitive data, like physical movement, to manipulate product pricing violates existing consumer protection laws. Collecting massive amounts of physical movement data has shifted from a tech capability to a federal and state legal liability. To understand why organizers take on this liability, you have to look at the revenue model. Festivals require massive corporate sponsorships to survive, and those sponsors demand hard data to prove the return on their investment. Wristband pings aggregate into localized heat maps, revealing exact attendee counts, demographics, and brand activation dwell times. This spatial data merges with transaction histories, calculating the crowd's fluctuating willingness to pay, allowing vendors to optimize prices based on real-time footfall. Corporate sponsors expect this level of granularity. They require exportable reports detailing foot traffic, impressions, and conversions, packaged and sold with the exact same metrics they use to buy digital advertising online. In the end, the festival's most profitable product is the packaged behavioral profile of the person watching the stage. Operating a system like this in 2026 requires strict adherence to the California Consumer Privacy Act, or CCPA. Specifically, it triggers a compliance mandate known as purpose limitation. Purpose limitation is the legal requirement that data collected for one stated reason cannot be repurposed for another without direct notification and explicit consumer consent. If an attendee scans their wristband to open a gate, organizers cannot feed that data into a targeted pricing algorithm without permission. The California Privacy Protection Agency actively enforces this rule. They are aggressively auditing companies and levying heavy fines against those who fail to honor consumer opt-out requests or who repurpose data in the shadows. By early 2026, enforcement actions included a $2.75 million penalty against Disney for failing to apply opt-outs across all devices, and a $1.1 million fine against ticketing provider PlayOn for lacking clear opt-outs regarding tracking technology. Mega festivals survive this regulatory environment because they retain massive enterprise legal teams. They spend millions building the compliance infrastructure necessary to encrypt data, manage consent forms, and securely process thousands of opt-out requests. In 2026, the software as a service, or SaaS, market shifted. The exact same enterprise-grade footfall tracking and heat map analytics used to monitor festival crowds are now packaged and sold as cheap, monthly plug-and-play subscriptions. Local boutiques and coffee shops are installing these systems to monitor how customers navigate their aisles. They want the same insights the big players have, using the data to optimize store layouts and test their own dynamic pricing models. SaaS vendors are eager to sell the surveillance capabilities of a mega festival for a low monthly fee. They do not, however, supply the enterprise-level legal armor required to safely process that data. A sleek access scanner mounted on a local shop's door operates on the same protocols as a festival security gate. It pulls in highly regulated personal identifiers from the smartphones and smartwatches of anyone who walks past it. Every pause in front of a display rack, every step taken toward the register, and every item picked up is logged and sent to a third-party server to generate a behavioral map of that shopper. By chasing big data analytics, Main Street merchants are turning their shops into unregulated surveillance zones. The ultimate trap for these small businesses snapped shut with the August 2026 enforcement deadline for the California Delete Act, centered around a system called DROP, the Delete Request and Opt-out Platform. This diagram illustrates how DROP operates. It is a centralized state platform where consumers submit a single request. That request broadcasts outward, forcing all registered data brokers to instantly locate, suppress, and delete that individual's behavioral data across their entire network. Under the Delete Act, there is no cure period. If a small business relies on a cheap tracking tool that fails to process a drop request within the required 90 days, the violation triggers an immediate, unappealable enforcement. The resulting financial penalties can scale rapidly. Regulators apply base CCPA fines of $2,500 per violation and layer on an additional $200 per day penalty for every single drop request the software fails to delete. Democratized tech promises festival-level analytics for small businesses, but it secretly delivers enterprise-level legal liabilities that can lead to financial ruin.